Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here. In today's video, I want to go over some free agents that the Washington Commanders could consider signing this offseason before the start of the 2025 season. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell as well so you never miss a video. So let's get right into it. We're end of June right now. This is a pre-recorded video just letting you guys know. Hopefully by now I'm pretty well recovered, but let's get into this. Some different free agents that they could sign. They have enough cap space to make a move if they want to sign some of these bigger name free agents. Edge rushers, obviously the biggest position of need. You look at the edge rushers available. You got Von Miller, you got Matthew Judon, you got Preston Smith, you got Zadarius Smith, you got Jadeveon Clowney, DeMarcus Walker. Don't know much about him. Actually, let's see. Okay, yeah, Kaiser White. Brandon Graham, who I feel like he's retired or gonna retire. Jerry Hughes. I'm trying to see any names that some people know. Kruger Hill, James Smith Williams. That's a throwback. So those are kind of the edge rushers available for the Commanders. I mean, I'm sure if we go outside linebackers, there might be some other names out there. Let's see, available. And yeah, I mean, they group them together. So those are the main guys available. I think defensive end is the biggest position of need. They'll probably go in with this group, but if things don't go, they're not really liking their group heading into training camp or a week or two after training camp, they might go and be like, you know what, we need to sign one of these heavy hitters that are still out there, and let's talk about some of those guys. So Jadeveon Clowney is probably my number one guy available. I think he is still playing at a high level. Is he elite? No, but he's still a good defensive end in this league. 6'5", 266 pounds. Obviously went to South Carolina, is known for that big hit against Michigan, and was the number one overall pick. A little bit disappointing early on in his career, but then found his stride like 2016 to 2019, where, had a couple big years, wasn't ever really a big time sack guy, but had a few years over the last 11 years, which is crazy, that he almost got double digits. So 9.5 in 2017, 9, and then 9.5. Sacks aren't everything. He gets a bunch of tackles for loss too, 21 in 2017, and then, gets QB hits and, is good in the run game. That's one of the biggest things that, Jadeveon's good at, is being a good run defender. And, not a lot of guys are very, as good as Jadeveon Clowney is as, a run defender. And that was one of the biggest weaknesses the Commanders had last year. So this past year, played for the Panthers, played in 14 games, had 5.5 sacks, 46 combined tackles, 11 QB hits, 9 TFLs. The year before with the Ravens, 17 games, 9.5 sacks. So it was really, really close to that 10 sack mark. And yeah, he had a good year. I don't think he's going to be getting a lot of money, especially at this point in the off season. I don't think teams are going to be willing to pay 15, even 10 plus $1 million. It's going to, Jair Alexander just got like 1 year, $4 million up to $6, something like that from what I remember. So with Clowney, it's not going to be a lot, and you're going to be able to get him for cheap, and a guy that's played well for a while now in the NFL, you know what you're going to get from him. So that's not, the number one guy I have on this list. And these are not necessarily guys I would sign, but Clowney is one guy. But some of these are just potential options. The next one's a little bit surprising. I haven't really heard his name a lot, but Keenan Allen. And I know we don't necessarily need a receiver, but Noah Brown's, is dealing with the injury. Again, I'm recording this on June 23rd, so there's no official update. But, it's looking like it's good, though. Good news. But let's say it ends up not being good news and, he's out for a while. Then maybe you bring in a veteran like Keenan Allen, who's played in the league for a while. He 12 seasons and, has been one of the better receivers in the NFL during the 2010s. 1,000 yards, and then, the next 3 years was hurt. That's the biggest thing with him is injury issues. 2017 to 2021, 1,000 yards every year except for 2020, which he was 8 yards away from that. And even in 2023, played in 13 games at the age of 31 and had 1,243 yards and 7 touchdowns. Even this past year with the Bears, didn't have his best season, still had 744 yards, 7 touchdowns, 10.6 yards per catch. So, he had a good, still had a productive season. Definitely by far the lowest catch percentage of his career at 58% compared to, every other year was, the lowest was 63.6, and every other year was, much higher. You see, some all the way into the 80s, and then most of them, on average, high 60s, low 70s is what he was doing. But, still productive. He is older, but I think he wants to stay with the Bears, maybe go back to the Chargers, but I wouldn't mind taking a swing on him. But again, then your receiving core is pretty old. But again, also, it's not like you have a bunch of options on the team like, Luke McCaffrey. You can't, count on him. And same thing with Jalen Lynn. Hopefully one of those guys, steps up. But, we're going to have to wait and see. But Keenan Allen is an option. Again, don't think it's going to happen. And I'm not necessarily saying I think it should happen. If Noah Brown is out for a little bit, then I would consider it. And, if that's happening and none of the rookies are stepping up, then okay, I think that actually makes sense. But right now, I would hold off. But, he still has some good football left in him. And I think, the Commanders can go ahead and potentially sign him depending on how things are playing out and if he even wants to come to the Commanders, how much money he's wanting, and stuff like that. Next guy is Darius Smith. I think this one's very realistic. 6'4", 270 pounds. This past year played for the Lions and also played for the Browns. So we played him twice, and he had a good game, definitely a good game against us when he was on the Browns. I don't think he had a good game, or I don't know. I don't really remember in the playoffs. Let's see if he did not have a sack. So, but yeah, it was. He had a good game against us, when he was on the Browns. 5 sacks with the Browns, 4 sacks with the Lions. So 9 total sacks in 2024. 2023, 5.5 sacks. 10 the year before. Was out all of 2021. 12.5, 13.5, 8.5. Like he's been a good pass rusher for a while now. A couple years where he was really good, where he was a Pro Bowl, All-Pro type of player. But, right now he's not necessarily that guy, but I think he's just a step down. He's still a good pass rusher in this league. He's probably better than anything we have on the roster at the edge rusher position. I like Dorrance Armstrong, and maybe his potential is a little bit higher, and in a couple years he can be better. But, I don't know. I think Zadarius Smith is at a high level right now, somewhat of a high level compared to Dorrance Armstrong. Dorrance Armstrong, it's not like he's young, but, he still could continue to improve. He still could. So, something to keep in mind there. But Zadarius Smith for a 1-year deal, I think it makes sense. He went to the Lions. Maybe he wants to stay, stick around and, play with a contender, and he could stay with the Lions. But also, the Commanders are right there if he wants to, go to the winning side, compared to the Lions, at least in 2024. So, I would like the Zadarius Smith signing for sure. Don't think it's going to cost a lot of money. It makes sense. Position of need, a guy that you can just plug and play for a year. You don't have to commit to a 2, 3, 4-year contract. You can continue to develop some of your other guys that you have there, and then, try to find that long-term solution in the 2026 NFL draft or free agency, who knows, or via trade at some point. That's how I would play this whole situation. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you guys did enjoy. Just talk about 3 free agents I think the Washington Commanders should sign. And I mentioned some other ones, or maybe not that they 100% should sign, but at least they should explore. And especially Jadeveon Clowney and Zadarius Smith. The Keenan Allen one's a little bit more of a, play-by-ear situation. But thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.